After days of criticism following last week's presidential debate, President Biden says he is not planning to drop out of the race for his re-election. The president appeared in public at a Medal of Honor ceremony at the White House about an hour ago. And he's about to make his way into a closed-door meeting with some Democratic governors, including Illinois Governor JB Pritzker. CBS 2's Sabrina Franza is live for us in the control room with what we might expect to happen in that meeting. Sabrina.
Erica, President Biden is on his way to meet upwards of 20 Democratic governors in that closed-door meeting, as you said, including Illinois Governor JB Pritzker, part of a group his team calls some of his closest partners. Experts say what will likely happen in that meeting, the president will likely ask those governors for a more robust showing of support of his re-election campaign. Those experts also telling us that the president will need to show more of himself, appear more live and in person if he's going to convince more voters that he can withstand another 4 years in office. At a Medal of Honor ceremony at the White House, President Biden presented a medal posthumously to two Civil War heroes.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
In the White House press room hours earlier, questions continued to swirl about whether or not he is fit for 4 more years as commander-in-chief. When asked if the president would step down,
Absolutely not. And you heard, I believe, directly from the campaign as well.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre explained the president's last physical exam was in February. The results have not been made public, adding she knew the president was also jet-lagged going into the debate, but didn't originally say that.
I would call it, we had a bad night, right? It was not his best night. He had a cold, he was jet-lagged.
In less than a half hour, the president heads into a meeting with Democratic governors, including Illinois Governor JB Pritzker, who said last night,
"Yeah, I think that, again, he's our nominee. And so unless he makes a different decision, I'm on board."
We asked an expert how those governors might react in that closed-door conversation.
The governors are probably going to discuss among themselves, not at the meeting, if the president were to step aside, who should be the candidate. The most logical is the vice president, but some of the governors are potential candidates for president. None of them, I think, will move forward unless Joe Biden says he resigns or is not going to seek the nomination.
We did reach out to Governor JB Pritzker's team for comment ahead of this meeting and also to check in after that meeting. We'll let you know as soon as we hear back. For now, we're live in the control room. Sabrina Franza, CBS 2 News. Erica.
All right. Sabrina, thank you.